Hey bosses, it's Marie from Asian Boss. The ongoing tensions between the US and China over Taiwan are putting many other Asian countries in a tricky situation too. For example, Singapore actually has ties with both the US and China. And Singapore's Prime Minister, in his recent annual speech, said the country would try its best to avoid being caught up in the major power rivalry. However, would you be surprised to hear that Singapore is one of the only countries in the Indo-Pacific that has more favorable views of China compared to the US? At least that's what a recent survey found out. But is this result true? What do Singaporeans really think of China? Our Asian Boss reporter hit the streets of Singapore to find out.
So today we are getting Singaporeans' honest opinion on China. First of all, what are the three words that pop up in your mind when you think about China, the country?
Manufacturing, big, powerful.
They are rich, definitely rich. I think powerful. A lot of business opportunity going around. I think they are everywhere.
So oppression, communism, and also old, culture.
What is your perception of China like as a Singaporean? Is it mostly positive or negative?
To me, it's mostly positive. I mean, I'm Chinese Indonesian, so it's a little bit of a different perspective. But I still identify strongly with, being Chinese ethnically. And I think that, people on TikTok make fun of us for COVID. We started COVID and all that. I think it's a little unfair. So I think China really doesn't deserve as bad a reputation as it gets.
I think I take that as mainly positive because a lot of our products is made in China, produced there, and we use it daily. So I think the country itself is important in the region. Yeah, that's my opinion.
I dislike China's governmentship. It's not because of their political ideology, it's just the way that they govern their country. Yeah, I'm not against. Okay, let's say I'm not a communist, but I'm not against the communist ideology. I think it's a good ideology, but it's just corrupted by human. It's corrupted by human nature. But that said, I do not like their way of governing. But I like the way that China has a very huge, very vibrant culture.
It's neutral.
Why do you have a neutral perspective?
Because I was raised in China, and back then I was had mostly positive views. Coming to Singapore, I gained maybe a bit of negative views. So now it's become a neutral style because I've read a lot of Western media essays, and it's mostly when it comes to politics of China, it's mostly negative.
How do you think the local Singaporean media portrays China? And what do they typically report about?
Because of what is going on right now between China and Taiwan, so I guess the media wasn't that kind to them, right? So the opinion might be a bit negative.
I think in general, Singaporean media is tries to be quite neutral-ish, but it does lean on a bit more favorable towards China. Yeah, I think.
I feel like they are quite careful when it comes to covering China news. They don't want to. I can feel that they don't want to stir up any negative sentiments that we may have towards China, because we do have a lot of trade with them. As compared to the news that I see on YouTube by American sources, it's definitely way more negative than the kind that I'm seeing in Singapore.
So according to a recent survey, Singapore is one of the only countries in the Indo-Pacific that has more favorable views of China compared to US. Do you feel that this is accurate, that more Singaporeans prefer China over US?
Yeah, I think so. It's closer in terms of distance and stuff, and then also I'm guessing there's also all the trade and business stuff.
I feel maybe, yeah, because there are quite a lot of number of Chinese ethnics. I know there are people favoring US as well, so maybe half and half, I would guess.
I don't feel that is the case. Generally, Singapore have a negative feeling about the people. But as a country-wise, I think the relationship between country and country is still good. but because the culture is a bit different, people to people, so maybe the general population have a bit of a negative opinion on them.
Sometimes China is seen as the antithesis of the West, right? So it's like superpower versus superpower. And you have the West, which is very liberal. There's a lot of focus on inclusivity and making sure that all voices are heard. But also, you know, with their processes and the way that their government is split, things tend to take a lot slower in terms of passing bills. And with China, I think maybe what people see is that the cost of that loss of freedom, where, you know, people don't actually have as much liberty to vote and choose and decide what happens in the country. Most of it is kind of dictated. Some people may also interpret that as efficiency in government. So instead of letting people sort of hash it out and trash it out, the government just takes a decision to quickly enact what they feel is best, which they feel might be efficient.
I would say, given the Singaporean culture, perhaps we are a bit more pragmatic, and I'm not sure if it's got to do with our Chinese culture, but I feel like the people around me will probably do favor China a little bit more, especially I would say as compared to when Donald Trump was in office, right? There was a lot of chaos there. So we prefer like certainty and we don't like ambiguity. So I would say people do prefer China over US. Yeah.
So if it's true that majority of Singaporeans favor China over US, do you think most Singaporeans would support Taiwanese independence?
I don't think Singaporeans will support it because we'll be afraid of like offending China, right? And personally, my view is that we wouldn't want to go and interfere in this kind of thing, so no.
More people want to protect Taiwan because they don't want any war. But doesn't mean we support Taiwan to fight back or what. Yeah. But what I saw from the comment itself is really supporting like Taiwan because we want to protect them. We don't want something happen to them.
Even though a lot of Singaporeans would maybe accept China and say, China's okay, but I would say that there are a lot more Singaporeans would definitely support Taiwan in their quest for independence.
Why do you think so?
Like Singapore, we've gone through our own turmoil and our own hardships with overcoming independence from the British. Singapore has its own struggle with independence, and they kind of relate to what Singaporeans would kind of relate to what Taiwan is trying to do right now. Yeah.
I think Taiwanese independence for Singaporean, we didn't take it very seriously because no matter what, Taiwan, we know it as ROC, Republic of China. So we have this perception that it belongs to China. So right now it's almost like taking back Hong Kong. I mean to me lah, at least.
Singapore ranks as the second in the world as being most influenced by China. Is this something that you have noticed yourself? So how much Chinese influence do you see in Singapore, and can you give me some examples?
I mean, yeah, I guess I agree because I see Chinese New Year is a big thing here. A lot of people speak Chinese as well, especially the older generation. The media as well. A lot of people are into Mando pop, Chinese dramas, things like that.
They see Chinese influence basically everywhere in Singapore. I say even in schools, we have a very Chinese way of education, which is after school tuition centers. We imported a lot of that from China. The urge to for your offspring, for your descendants to be successful.
Even my kids now, they speak Chinese with that China accent. Singapore is quite influenced by China because there's a majority portion of Chinese in Singapore, Chinese Singaporeans in Singapore.
Do you think your ethnic background influences your views on China?
Maybe more or less, yes. Because originally my grandparents, right, they are from Fujian, China. And I myself, I work in Guangzhou for a while. But no matter what, I'm still a born and bred Singaporean, right? So, I mean, Singapore is still my home lah. Of course, I don't have any relationship with China when I'm born here. But because my origins are from there, so it's a kind of a parents that give birth to you and the parents that bring you up, right? So that's that kind of relationship. So maybe I'm a little biased.
I think it's a very human thing, you know, like obviously I'm Chinese Indonesian, so I'll see being Chinese as something good. Yeah. So in a way that sort of influences how I see China. Because, you know, my relatives were like, I have grandparents from there.
Why Singapore so many Chinese?
Perhaps back then the conditions were not too good in China, so people are trying to make a living, right? So they came here back then, like at least my grandparents' generation, and then we populated here.
Okay, do you think age has an influence on how someone sees China?
Actually, I do think it plays a part. I would feel that the older generation, they would tend to be a bit more pro-China. Perhaps they're more conservative. They favor stability, predictability, which are some key attributes of the Chinese government and Chinese society, as compared to the younger generation, where they're more liberal and they prefer like more democratic processes per se. So I would think that they prefer the way things are handled in the US side.
Older Chinese Singaporeans, such as those who are 60 or 70 years old, they have been more Chinese educated. A lot of youngsters are more like English educated, and they will tend to slide more with the Americans. A lot of my Singaporean Chinese friends are not very enthusiastic about Chinese culture and learning Chinese in general. So a lot of the news are more English, and since a lot of it is more English, there will be more Western ideologies that they adopt and accept, more than Chinese ones.
Singapore should work closely with US or with China?
I mean, between the two, I would like to say US, but at the same time, US has a lot of issues also lah.
I think Singapore's position is very unique. We would like to trade with China and US, right? Because Singapore is, a country that needs trade to survive. We don't have any much more natural resources. I think we should stay neutral. We shouldn't lean on to one side or another, which I think is a very bad case if we lean to one side or another.
I feel like if we sway either way, we'll lose the resources from the other side. So for example, if we sway on the pro-Chinese side, we'll lose our resources from the US, such as our fighter planes and all that other imports that we get from the US. And then if we sway on the US side, we might lose our imports from China, stuff like our, for example, like oil, and then even like stuff like our groceries, which mostly come from China.
I mean, as balanced and as equal and as fair as we can be, with both superpowers making major moves in the past and also possibly in the near future, eventually we will have to take a stand, just as we did in the the whole invasion of Ukraine, where we have very clearly stated our stand, but at the same time we still recognize that we need to maintain relationships. So stepping on some toes is inevitable lah, but we don't attack first, but we always make sure that we guard and cover ourselves. So I think trying to maintain relations with these countries is part of that strategy.
How do you think we can maintain our good relationship with both of them?
I mean, US and China, they still do try to find avenues to like collaborate and to find consensus on, right? So as long as we look at those aspects with both parties, we can also have a positive relationship with them. I think the best way is to just not interfere in very like controversial issues like territorial disputes, that kind of thing.
As of now, we are able to maintain that relationship with both countries. But let's say tomorrow China decide to invade Taiwan, and then US come in to help, right? So I mean, for Singapore, the best case is not to get involved, but as a friend to US, we are not likely to just stand aside and watch, right? So if let's say Singapore were to help in any small way, China will look at us as an enemy, right? That is the time where Singapore have to choose. Everybody want to have a peaceful relationship with everybody, right? Status quo. So as of now, everything is good, everything is peaceful, so we would like to maintain it. That means we don't have to do anything extra, don't have to do anything special. That means we don't do anything, just maintain it.